6, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, to the Minister of Finance, is the loss of future dividends due to his planned sale of state-owned assets accounted for in the forecast financial statements in his budget, or is this cost listed as an unquantified fiscal risk?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, the fiscal forecasts do not include an estimate of the specific transactions proposed under the mixed ownership model. There are no forecast costs associated with the sale, no reduction in dividend income or receipt of sale proceeds. Instead, it has been highlighted as a specific fiscal risk, pending decisions. What has been included in the forecast is the government's intention to meet the cost of the next 5 budgets' capital allowance off the balance sheet. That is a zero capital allowance. It is our broad intention that most of this will be funded by mixed ownership model proceeds. It's worth noting the Treasury believes the ongoing operating impact of mixed ownership is likely to be broadly balanced, as any reduction in dividends is likely to be cancelled out by reduced interest payments.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, when will the Minister present to the New Zealand public an accurate and detailed statement on the cost of asset sales, and will this be before or after the 2011 general election, or is he trying to keep the truth secret?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, that will depend on how we measure the dividends, and I notice that while the member is going around, and the Labour Party going around saying the government would be foregoing 700 million of dividends, if you will remove the special Meridian dividends to do with the sale of assets, Crown assets in Australia, under the Labour government, the average total dividend for the energy companies, excluding Meridian, was under 100 million a year. So that's why I questioned yesterday where he got his $700 million figure from.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
I'm so glad the Minister asked me that, because my next question reads...
Order.
Mr
Member
Speaker.
resume his seat. Member knows that kind of commencement to a question is going to lead to disorder, and he's not the first person to have done that. Order. He's not the first person to have done it today, but we need to try and avoid the temptation to make that kind of...
Given the Minister's previous comment, did he read the 2010 financial statements that bear his signature and clearly record total dividends from SOEs and Air New Zealand was 831 million in that year? And if so, why did he tell this House yesterday that, quote, the true figure for dividends from state-owned enterprises is probably about 350 million, close quote?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, because I was using a roughly calculated... a roughly calculated average over the last 7 or 8 years. Under the Labour government, the energy companies, excluding Meridian, produced dividends of less than 100 million a year, which was a disgraceful return on taxpayers' capital, which showed poor performance and sloppy governance.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Speaker, given that the Minister continues to dispute the actual figures released by the SOEs and compiled by the Parliamentary Library, can he confirm that the total dividend loss across the assets he is planning to sell over on a 5-year basis is 281 million on a total basis, or 312 million per annum on average over the last 5 years after inflation?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, no. And the member is picking a number, and he could pick a different number. In 2009, total dividends from all SOEs were 223 million. As I said, the dividends excluding the Meridian's large dividend from the sale of an asset in Australia were less than 100 million a year. The SOEs were badly run under Labour. We have improved that. We're getting a better return on taxpayers' money, and under mixed ownership model that will continue to improve. And in the end, we're more interested in paying dividends to Kiwis than interest to foreign lenders, which is his party's preference.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, is his lack of credibility in accurately booking the proceeds from unmandated asset sales but not the full costs one of the reasons why Standard & Poor's has kept his government's credit rating on negative outlook?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, no, but I know what Standard & Poor's might be thinking if the Labor Party got into power and said it was going to borrow a further $15 billion, which is what will be the cost of the promises they've made so far, no doubt with more to come.
The Honourable Dave, point of order.
Speaker, I seek leave to table data from the Parliamentary Library that shows the 5-year average of dividend flows from the assets the Minister is proposing to sell to be $281 million a year on average without inflation, or $312 million inflation adjusted per annum on average.
Leavers sought to table that Parliamentary Library document. Is there any objection? Is there an objection?
Point of order,
well,
Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the tabling of this document? Oh, okay, the Honourable Bill English, if this clarification is needed, but it must be... I'm trusting the member to make a genuine point of order.
Yeah. I just want to clarify whether the figures include the special dividend from the $1 billion plus sale of assets in Australia.
No, that is really a debating point. Leavers sought to table that document from the Parliamentary Library. Is there any objection? There is no objection.
Mr. Speaker,
point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to table a further document, dividends of state-owned enterprises paid to the Crown, which show such data
What's
right
the
back
source
to
of that
1993,
document?
again from the Parliamentary Library and the Treasury financial statements.
Leavers sought to table that document prepared by the Parliamentary Library. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Question number 7, Melissa Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.